Hi, everybody. Welcome into the second floor of the Duncan Student Center. I'm Ellen Geyer. Today I'm joined by Paul Farrington. So Paul and I are the two seniors here at the station, and that means that this is our last football preview show of all time. So that's caused me to do a little bit of reflection this week. And I've decided that the NDTV station can be summed up with the same tagline as the movie Wayne's World, which is you'll laugh, you'll cry, and you'll hurl. I've laughed as I've been asked questions about players I've literally never heard of before. I've cried as I've dissected some of Notre Dame's saddest losses. And I've definitely hurled as I've had to listen to some of Paul's horrifying takes about Notre Dame football over time. So we'll see if any of those things happen today. Hopefully not, but who knows. We got a Georgia Tech recap, we got a college football preview, and we got a preview of one certain game that may or may not be happening on the other side of this wall tomorrow night. Shamrock Sports starts right now. I'm Ellen Geyer, and you're watching Shamrock Sports. And my childhood dreams coming true.
You know, Notre Dame, they won it in the year that doesn't count. This doesn't matter at all. Join a conference.
Williams helmet off. He's out. Jafar Armstrong in. Fake to him. Setting up the screen to Armstrong. Here goes the senior from Missouri. Room to run inside the 10. Inside the 5. To the right. Gray lined up in the backfield. Same motion, same setup. This time it's the boot. Bryce in trouble, and he is brought down by Foskey. Now they will go. Yep, bouncing outside. It is Kyron Williams. He will go the distance. Notre Dame touchdown, Kyron Williams.
Hi, guys. Welcome back in. So Paul and I were just talking about how many fond memories we have here at NDTV. Paul, what has been your favorite memory to date?
Oh, I mean, we're not dying. We're not
dying.
Here, but,
although, do you remember last week when it sounded like Rooney had died when we were talking about that? Rooney is not dead, by the way, if anyone was wondering.
Favorite memory, probably a first show when I slighted Boston College at the end.
All right.
Yeah, you know, it's always fun to slight BC.
Yeah, I know. We might have a little bit of that coming up today, but who knows? But speaking of ACC foes, let's get into last week's matchup. So we saw Notre Dame, Georgia Tech. Pretty easy win for the Irish. That was a 31-13 victory down in Georgia. Ian Book, 18 for 26 with a 69% completion rating. Kyron and Sebo split carries, 15 each. Williams had 2 touchdowns, and Flemister had 1. One spot of just like new look for the offense, I thought, was the deep threat last week. Javon McKinley, leading receiver with five catches in that game. Paul, what was your biggest takeaway from that game last week?
Well, I don't want to overreact to anything because Georgia Tech is a pretty inferior opponent. Past 3 games against Clemson, BC, and Notre Dame now. They've lost a combined, I believe it was 155 to 47.
Something like that.
Yeah, this is a pretty weak ACC opponent. What I really enjoyed taking away from this game was that Ian Book played well. Throughout the whole game, he didn't make mistakes. He was efficient in his intermediate throws. You got what you wanted out of Ian Book. The best thing for me, though, is the defense is absolutely elite.
Yeah.
There's not many problems along that defense. They didn't give up points till the fourth quarter. There's one concern I have, though, coming into this Clemson game, and that's the deep ball. We've seen it in the past against Louisville. We saw Florida State and Tamori and Terry have some success there. And even though you're playing Georgia Tech and they put up 6 points on the defense, there was one deep ball. There's another one that probably should have been caught. So that's an issue that in this secondary that has been around for much of the year. And I'm interested to see how exactly that will play out against Clemson.
Yeah, and we'll get into this a little bit more later, but one of Clemson's biggest things is Amari Rogers, their leading receiver, averages 14.5 yards per catch. So that's definitely something that will have to be addressed for this week. But I agree with you. I thought that there were a lot of positives. Ian Book did his job. At this point, I think that's what we're going to see from him. I don't think we should take for granted that we have a reliable quarterback. Maybe he's not an all-star, but I think he gets the job done. Something that I took away was definitely he did look a little bit better with the deep ball. Javon McKinley, like I said, had some of those longer receptions. So I think that was a little bit of a bright spot. It was obviously great to see Joe Wilkins with his first career touchdown. That was a beautiful play.
We'll take any receiver involvement here. Any
that's
receiver
true.
that catches the ball, we'll celebrate.
Literally anyone. So thank you, Joe, for that one. And yeah, I think that there's a lot of things to be excited about going into this week. So yeah, I guess to me, I don't know how much there is to talk about. Notre Dame controlled the clock in that game, 36 minutes to 24 in time of possession. Also kind of just controlled the offense. I think it was for about 400 yards of offense for Notre Dame compared to about 200 for Georgia Tech. So I think controlling the clock is something that's going to be huge this week. What was your biggest, I guess you already said what your biggest concern was.
You know, there's something that about Ian Book that we didn't mention. And if you take a look at advanced analytics here, if you really dive into analytics, you would see that the Notre Dame passing offense has actually been more efficient than the running game for the past 4 weeks now. That could be a variety of factors. Teams are stuffing the box against Kyron Williams. Mm-hmm. It could be that the Notre Dame passing offense is pretty limited in terms of its playbook, but you have to remember that Ian Book is doing what he has to do. He's 90% completion from throws 0 to 9 yards, 60% 10 to 15. So Book is actually playing really well. He's getting the job done. It's just you have to wonder at what point do you need to extend the ball beyond 10 yards. 70% of his passes do not travel more than 10 yards in the air.
Yeah.
Against Clemson, you're going to have to convert a couple of third and longs perhaps to win this game. But just to point out that Ian Book has been good. Like,
he's been consistent.
Efficient,
he's been consistent.
And you're completely right. You can't complain about a top 15 quarterback on your team.
But yeah, I think too his deep balls have gotten a little bit longer. I was concerned 2 weeks ago when his completion percentage I think was 16 from over 10 yards, and it was something like 80 or 90 from within 10 yards. Which when you have such a dominant ground offense, I don't think you need to rely on the pass so much in short yardage. But if it works, it works. First downs are first downs. Yeah. So
we know who we are.
We know who we are. Be a star in your role, I think.
All right.
So
yeah,
I feel like that's kind of the motto for the Irish offense this year. But yes, certainly something to be happy about. I think looking forward into this matchup this week. So with that, I don't think that there's any point in dwelling on that game anymore.
Let's get out of the way.
Let's get out of the way.
We've been waiting all year for this.
Week by week, baby. But before we get to a certain Clemson game, we're going to look around. We're going to look around the college football playoff a tiny bit. So with the start of Big Ten, the start of Pac-12, these games like Wisconsin getting canceled, what is your impression of the playoff as these later seasons start, these shortened seasons just like continue to be shortened even more? Where do you think what role do you think that plays in the playoff committee's decisions?
I think it has to play a role. So we know that the coronavirus is a part of this season. That's just a fact. The Big 12, with Oklahoma State losing now, they've really seemed to have taken themselves out of the picture.
Big 12 is useless.
The Big 12 is gone. And the Pac-12, I believe they're on a 6 or 7 game schedule this year. The only potential contender you get there is Oregon. But given their schedule, they don't play a ranked opponent. I think that's too weak, too short of a season to actually give yourself any momentum into the playoff, in the committee's eyes at least. So you already have 2 conferences that are out of the mix there. You're probably going to get one from the SEC, likely to be Bama. You're probably going to get one from the Big Ten, Ohio State. And then that leaves room for Clemson or Notre Dame or perhaps both.
¿Por qué no los dos?
So, ¿por qué los dos? So, the team I'm keeping an eye on is Cincinnati.
Okay.
I think my hot take right now is that it's a 2-horse race between Notre Dame and Cincinnati for that last spot, assuming Notre Dame doesn't beat Clemson twice. I think that's something that is unlikely to happen, but possible.
Okay.
But if Notre Dame were to split with Clemson, I think it's a 2-horse race between Cincinnati and Notre Dame. One of them gets into the playoff, and the other one stays home.
Okay, Paul, this is the perfect segue. It's like you read my mind. Our next segment is going to be contender or pretender. So we're going to pick a team, and we're going to say whether we think they're a contender or a pretender for A, the playoff, and B, the national championship. So coincidentally, the first one is Cincinnati.
Boom.
It sounds like you're thinking they're a contender, but for the uninitiated at home, I'm just going to run through a couple stats so that way we're all on the same page.
Go ahead, hit me.
So Cincinnati is undefeated. They're 6th. And their most convincing win so far, though, has been against Army. So that's the highest-ranked opponent they've played, and Army was ranked 23rd at the time of the matchup. Their quarterback is Desmond Ridder. He's a 64.8% completion rate, 10 touchdowns. But he has 10 interceptions and 10 sacks. So that's a little bit of a cause for concern, but their defense is stout. Desmond is a dual-threat quarterback, and they have a reliable ground game. So contender or pretender?
Now, I'm gonna kind of shift the question a bit where I don't think that this team can actually win the national championship, but I think that they're in contention for it.
Okay.
And exactly the reasons you said. Desmond Ridder is one of the best dual-threat quarterbacks in the country. He's up for the Davey O'Brien Award. Their ground game has had 600 yards in the past 2 games combined. So offensively, they're there, and defensively, like you said, they're stout on the defensive side of the ball. They're able to get the job done. The issue, of course, with these Group of 5 teams is their strength of schedule. You said Army was one of their best wins of the year. They defeated an SMU team, which is ranked as well, and Memphis was the other one. And all of those games have been blowouts, almost 30-point games for all of them. So the Cincinnati team has showed they can actually get the job done against quality opponents. And if it comes down to them or a one-loss Notre Dame team, I'm not sure you don't put the undefeated Cincinnati in. I'd love to have Notre Dame take that spot, but it'll be close depending on how Notre Dame's loss actually plays out.
So it sounds like to you this year, being in a conference for Notre Dame is going to play out in their favor in terms of if they win a conference championship and Cincinnati doesn't, you put the Irish in over Cincinnati, even if the Bearcats are undefeated?
My formula comes down to if Notre Dame splits with Clemson and the other loss is close, and that's same deal for Clemson. As long as the loss is close, then you probably put in those 2 ACC teams.
Okay, I was going to say I'm going to remember this for next year, but sadly, as we said before, we're not going to be here for next year. But I'm going to remember this because I feel like this is the exact independent conversation that we have week in and week out in the previous years, but now we're in a conference, so kind of the roles have been reversed. So, I don't know.
Hopefully we get out of the ACC.
Hopefully we get out of the ACC.
We will. We're not staying in the ACC. It's a joke.
So next, contender or pretender, Georgia. So they seem like they're a contender every single year. Their one loss this year has come to Alabama, but it was about a 20-point game, about a 20-point rout by the Crimson Tide. So their quarterback is not great though. His completion percentage is somewhere in the mid-50s. It was 45 against Alabama. His name's Stetson Bennett, and he had two touchdowns, but 2 sacks and 2 interceptions in that game against Bama. So he doesn't look great under that in-conference pressure. But the Bulldogs are ranked 5th still, and they have Zamir White, who's a great running back. He's had 6 touchdowns, about 400 yards on the season so far. So contender or pretender, Georgia?
I'm going to say a pretender.
Okay.
I think that this is a very good team. They deserve the number 5 ranking in the country. But at the end of the day, they're not beating Alabama. They're not going to beat them in the SEC championship game. First, actually, they have to get by Florida. So
Florida is 8th, and I think that's
another
this
game
week,
this week. Number 5, Georgia hosting 8 Florida. Fun fact about that game, for the past 14 years that they've played, the team that leads the game in rushing has won that game.
Okay.
So 14 years, I mean, that's quite a large sample
streak,
size
yeah.
for you. And Georgia, they've been dominant all year on the ground. Or they have a very good ground game. Zamir White is a very good player. And given the struggles of the Florida secondary this year, I would not be surprised to see Florida try and back up to protect against Bennett, who is an okay quarterback. He can get the job done. Yeah. But that'll open up holes for White to take advantage. So Georgia should win this game, go to the SEC championship game, and then they'll lose to Bama.
So if they lose to Bama, then they're 2 losses and they're out of the playoff?
See you, Georgia. Let's not talk about you anymore. They're done.
Okay. All right. So this third one, contender or pretender, this goes out to our guy, Phil. Boston College took Clemson to a close game last week. For all intents and purposes, they had them right where they wanted to go, or right where they wanted them, until they let Clemson score 24 unanswered points. So this Boston College team has lost to 12th ranked UNC 26-22, 23rd ranked Virginia Tech 40-14, and obviously number 1 Clemson 34-28. Phil, has a 61.3% completion rating and 14 touchdowns, but he's been sacked 22 times.
That's always been the issue with Phil. Phil has a lot of trouble when pressure's in his face. We've seen blue and gold games here time and time again where Ian Book comes in, leads the offense down the field. Phil comes in, gets a little pressure, makes a mistake. I'd say I'm a fairly anti-Phil guy, and that's, there's some drama behind that, actually. But that's for another. That's for another day. That's for another day.
All right, Bob.
It's from a secondary source. But Phil Jerkovich, I think he's a good quarterback, someone who's helping BC take the right strides towards being a competitive program. In terms of pretender versus contender, I know that BC is not contender this year. You know they're not contender.
Yeah.
But next year, you could be looking at a team that is top 4 in the ACC. They could perhaps finish in that area. Other than that, though, I like what I'm seeing. They're making the right progress, and Coach Jeff Hafley has done a nice job there.
Yeah, and another shout out to one of my Ohio State guys. Jeff Hafley was the offensive coordinator for Ohio State last year, and then obviously he takes that Boston College head coaching job this year. So he's been able to do a lot of good things with the offense. I mean, they're 4-3. They're 8th in the ACC. Boston College, I don't think, is ever really a contender to
Not recently.
too much of a degree.
And as you can see, they had a great first half against Clemson.
Yeah,
It was really
I
that
mean,
second half when Clemson turned up the defensive pressure, got in Phil's face that he started to make some mistakes. But it really was a great game, as you can see on the screen here.
Yeah, and you can see we've got the first career start for DJ
Uyangalele.
If anyone could come up to the Shamrock Sports Studio and say that 5 times fast, maybe we'll give you a T-shirt or something. Because Paul, I think you and I are going to struggle with that name.
It's much more difficult than Trevor Lawrence.
Yes, I would agree with that.
He's
Ian
a
Book.
good player.
Yeah. So yeah, DJ, this is his first career start. He actually played in 4 games prior to the start that he saw in that game because Trevor Lawrence obviously out with COVID. So he found his stride a little bit in the second half, obviously with the 24 unanswered points, and he had a completion rating of about 70. So that's pretty solid takeaway from that. So.
Yeah, and you had to be impressed with the freshman making his first career start. He comes in and before he even touches the ball, they're down 7-0. So added on pressure to playing for the number 1 team in the country already. Second half, though, you have to give him credit because that comeback from Clemson, it really was on the legs of Uyangalele. It was Uyangalele.
DJ. It was on DJ's
But
legs.
he did it with his arm. That was what was so impressive is coming back in this game, you're down 15 at halftime. Mm-hmm. He looked really impressive, and he showed a lot of poise that you often don't see in freshman quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Some poise that you saw actually in Trevor Lawrence when he was a freshman.
I don't know, but we'll get into all of that in a minute. But before we go there, speaking of Trevor Lawrence, I don't know if you know this, Paul, but I guess this doesn't really matter for you, but he does have a girlfriend. I'm sorry to everybody watching. And a couple other Clemson players do too. And Liz has done an extremely hard-hitting piece of journalism this week. It's great investigative reporting. She's telling viewers like you exactly what you need to know. We're going to send it down to her for a breakdown of all the Clemson girlfriends.
Hi, my name is Liz Perna, and today we will be taking the football show in a new direction to discuss something that I think is equally interesting but completely underrated: football girlfriends. As much as Notre Dame is a football school, we are also a legacy school, a marriage school, a ring by spring school. So let's take a quick break from discussing what is sure to be a tense battle this weekend and focus on something that both teams can love: the Clemson football girlfriends. They call themselves the Real Housewives of Death Valley, a friend group of 4 girls all in relationships with some of the best Clemson football players. First, we have Marissa Mowry, fiancée of star quarterback Trevor Lawrence. They are high school sweethearts, and after dating for 6 years, they got engaged this past July. How did he manage to settle down so quickly, you may ask? I don't know, but it probably has something to do with his hair. Next, we have Mackenzie Wilburn, girlfriend of running back Darian Rensher. One of the team's most inspirational stories, he toured both ACLs in high school, made the Clemson roster as a walk-on, and eventually earned a scholarship in 2018. He also went through a phase of filtering all his Instagram pictures in black and white, but Mackenzie stuck with him through that, which says a lot. The third member of the girl group is Tiffany Jeffcoat, a heptathlete at Liberty University and the girlfriend of defensive end KJ Henry. KJ was ranked number 6 in the nation coming out of high school and is in his 3rd year at Clemson. Can he name all 7 events in the heptathlon? Probably not, but we still love an athletic couple. Finally, we have Mackenzie Grimley, girlfriend of talented tight end Braden Galloway. In the past few months, these two have gone viral with their adorable TikToks and now have huge social media followings. A few months ago, Clemson made Mackenzie delete a TikTok that featured Braden dancing in a dress. Maybe Notre Dame can take advantage of that fragile masculinity this weekend. These girls sit in the family section at home games, vlog their game days, take cute pictures in the stands, and make YouTube videos together. And they're all best friends. Basically, they're living the dream. So, no matter the outcome this weekend, don't stress. When Notre Dame versus Clemson is over, we'll still have the Real Housewives of Death Valley.
Thank you, Liz, for doing the most important journalism that's been done in these parts.
How much stalking went into that on Instagram?
Wow. I don't know. I don't know if Liz can reveal her sources.
Wow, what a job.
But this is we've got some good reporters coming on the up and up here at NDTV.
Yeah, no, that was fantastic.
Yeah.
That was well done, Liz.
So we're going to, on the heels of that, we're going to try to do some similarly important journalism here. and we have a series of head-to-head matchups lined up today. So we're going to break down the various position groups and go through and determine which team has the advantage in each group. So we'll go through coaching, receiving, rushing, quarterback, and secondary. So we're going to start it out with coaching, which I would venture to say is the most important part. So Paul, look at this photo right here. In this matchup, who would you say has better style, Brian Kelly or Dabo Sweeney? I mean, look at those fits right there.
I think I have to give it to Dabo. You have to love the Christmas outfit. I mean, Brian Kelly looks sharp there. The shades match the suit real nice, but I'm always a Christmas fan.
Yeah, but look at that sky blue suit and the peace sign, and he's got like some matrix shades
No, he's got swagger.
going on.
Brian Kelly has swagger, but Dabo Sweeney gets the job done there. I also think he's a better football coach.
Oh, well, that's neither here nor there, Paul. This is purely what not to wear right now.
Oh, and with Santa Claus, I mean, come on now.
Yeah, I guess so.
A lot of Christmas on these two shows today.
I know. Well, I mean, Halloween is over, so Christmas season has officially begun.
That's true. You can play Christmas music starting now.
Yeah, at least that's what I heard. So I'm going to give this one to BK. You're going to give it to Dabo?
Yes. Okay.
All right. So that is, I guess it's a tie. We don't have Caroline here to break the tie today. But I guess at the end, if we agree on anything, then we'll give the matchup, the overall head-to-head matchup breakdown to whichever team has more votes at the end.
Okay.
So second, we're going to go into offensive threat. So for this one, we've got Travis Etienne versus Javon McKinley. Paul, who is the cuter baby, Travis Etienne or Javon McKinley? I mean, look at those faces.
I have to go with Javon. Whatever's on Javon's head
there. What do you think kind of costume he's wearing?
It looks like he's Winnie the Pooh. He has to be Winnie the Pooh, and Winnie the Pooh
he
is
does have to
one
be.
of my
Look at
favorite,
that red shirt.
Probably my favorite Disney character, Winnie the Pooh. So I have to go with Javon.
But look at that smile.
I mean, Travis Etienne looks really happy.
Travis looks he's thrilled. He's got his Looney Tunes toys in front of him. He looks so excited.
Yeah, no, he looks like a happy guy right there. I can't vote against Winnie the Pooh. I've never done it before.
Is this a topic that's come to the forefront
more often than you would think?
Well, I guess we don't really ever know what's going on in Carroll Hall, so that does add up. All right, now we're going to move on to secondary defense. This is a tough matchup, and it's going to be one of the most critical places for where the success of this game is going to be determined. So for this one, we've got Kyle Hamilton against Andrew Booth Jr. Who has better shoe game? Booth in these green, look at these green sneakers. But Kyle Hamilton has these white Crocs, and if you look closely, you'll see that there is a Tigger gibbet on those Crocs.
Sticking with the Winnie the Pooh 100 Acre Woods theme. Nah, I have to go with the green shoes. The green shoes they're nice.
Oh, where do your loyalties lie? You're three, or I guess you picked Notre Dame on the last one, but.
Hey, Crocs are like a 5th grade thing.
But they're coming back into style,
Kyle,
I think.
Grow up, man.
But you get to express yourself via the gibbets. That's kind of like my.
No, I am a fan of the gibbets, but.
Okay.
Green shoes like there, maybe.
Those green shoes are pretty cool. But I don't know. I got to go with Kyle on this one, purely based on the gibbet ratio.
No, I can understand that. That's not ridiculous.
All right. So where does that take us? I have 3 Notre Dame. You have. Two Clemson and 1 Notre Dame. Okay, all right. So next.
Fast math.
Yeah, next we're going to move on to receiving threat. This one is an extremely critical category. We have Michael Mayer, the breakout star tight end, versus Amari Rogers. So let me just set the scene for you, Paul. You are an any age girl, and you're trying to explain what the boy. Yes. You're trying to explain to your family what the boy you're dating, talking to, have a crush on looks like. And his Instagram, the only post is from 2012, and he's holding a fish. That's option A, or it's from 2020, and he's posing with a tiger. Who do you take in this matchup? Who has the better animal photo, Amari Rogers or Michael Mayer? Which one of these guys do you want to take home to your mom?
Oh my God!
If you are an any age girl.
I think that Amari Rogers is the cool guy there, but Michael Mayer, he looks like he has a fun side
He looks
to
like
him.
he looks like a bit
Look
of
at
a
that
dweeb.
face. He looks
I'll
fairly
say it.
happy, and that's an impressive sized fish to catch. The
I
lake
mean,
is
it's a
never
good-
bad. That's the caption.
And hashtag fishing daily.
I like Michael
hashtag
Mayer.
fishing.
I like Michael Mayer in this one. He's got his brother, I'm assuming, behind him.
Yeah, look at
family
the
man.
little lurker in the
I see
back.
Amari Rogers. It's a great tiger.
I mean, it's hard to say. I feel like watching Tiger King made me a little bit jaded against tigers, so I'm a little bit scared. So I do admire the courage that Amari Rogers has here, but the tiger has to be tranquilized, whereas the fish, presumably, is fresh out of the sea.
Wait, you know it's a stuffed tiger. Alan.
Paul, where is your sense of your imagination
All right,
here?
that's a live fish. That's a nice job.
Yeah, I know. But yeah, presumably he wrangled this fish with his bare hands. He's so proud of it. Look at that smile. I mean, the lake is never bad, he says. 119 likes on that photo
Yeah,
versus
I don't wanna
7,000 likes on the tiger photo. But
I don't want to get too far into who I would rather bring home to mom and dad, but to me, I'd probably say Michael.
Michael Mayer, hometown boy. You heard it here first, the words out of Paul Farrington's mouth. So Michael, I don't know if you're single, but I don't know, if Carroll Hall is having like an SYR or something this year, you might get the invite.
Oh, man.
So last, this is going to be a shocking question. I'm sure no one is prepared for this, but I know I've been using a lot of superlatives when describing these other matchups, but this one just far and away has to be the most important one, and it is quarterback. So Paul, who has better hair, Trevor Lawrence or Ian Book?
Oh, better hair is Trevor Lawrence.
What?
Trevor, look at that.
Paul,
flow. Look at the mane.
All right, let me just walk you through.
Ian Book has a sharp cut.
Let me just walk you through the nuances of hair care. When your hair is longer, it like goes below your ears. You gotta wash it, and you can't wash it every.
telling me he doesn't wash his hair? Look at
delicate
him.
balance. You can only wash it every other day or every couple of days. No, look, it's hard to tell because this ND printing service you can't see very clearly on these papers in front of us. But Trevor Lawrence's hair is so greasy.
I guess the crowd they're playing to is not. I'm not a part of that, but to me, that's a nice head of hair on Trevor Lawrence. Ian Book has style, but
I don't know, but Ian's
I'm
got
also
Ian's
not
got
much
the,
of a hair guy, so
Ian's
I
got
don't
the
really know
sharp-
anything.
Ian's got the sharp edges though, and he's got a little something going on top.
I would say your sense of style is more important than mine. It outweighs mine.
Oh, that might be the nicest thing you've ever said to me.
Yeah, it's the last show.
All right, well, I mean, I guess crying, check the box, I guess. I don't know, laughing and hurling, I guess we still got to get to those. But, all right, so let's count this up. You take Trevor, I take Ian. We both took Javon.
Yes. I believe I was.
You took Andrew, I took Kyle.
3-2.
We
Clemson.
both took Michael, and then I took Brian, and you took Dabo.
So Notre Dame wins.
Notre Dame wins. So in every position matchup, if you take them all together, Notre Dame is going to win.
Football game.
The football game for sure, because what is more important in football than hair, shoes, style, fishing ability, and appearance as a child? Honestly, I couldn't tell you. So anyway, with that, now we're going to maybe get into a little bit of relevant sports information. I don't know if you're interested in that.
Yeah, I had no idea that was coming.
So we gotta keep you on your toes around
Keep it
here,
fresh,
Paul.
keep it light.
So no Trevor Lawrence this week, obviously. DJ will be the starting quarterback. There is speculation, at least in the observer offices, that Trevor Lawrence might play. He is traveling with the team, so I don't know what that means. I don't know. I don't think you bring Trevor Lawrence along as strictly a cheerleader.
Is that speculation? Is there anything rooted in that speculation, or is it
just the fact that he's traveling? I think.
Okay.
So he will be coming. He won't be playing. DJ's going to be playing. Obviously, our old friend Travis Etienne, who we saw in the Cotton Bowl, had his way pretty easily with the Irish back in 2018. He'll be back. Is the leading rusher for Clemson again. And that handsome guy you just saw, Amari Rogers, he's their leading receiver. And the Clemson defense does have a couple of absences in the secondary, though, both for COVID and injury reasons. So that'll be interesting. But in honor of our last show, we're going to do another fun segment. So back in the day, when I was just a fetus on Shamrock Sports, I used to do a segment that was Ellen's 3 keys to the game. It looked a little bit like this. We'll show you a clip. I'm Ellen Geyer, and these are 3 keys to this week's game. Music on that clip was always egregiously loud. And if you looked and
Still
you
is.
watched, if you watched down in the midfield comments, people would just like shoot up when the music came on. So that was always really fun.
Yeah, wake him up somehow.
But yeah, I never heard the end of that at like Thanksgiving or family holidays or anything. And one particular person has also helped me never hear the end of it.
I mean, you made it a tradition.
So
3 keys.
in honor of that, Paul and I are each going to go through our keys to the game. And Paul, I'll let you kick it off.
Okay, so my number 1 key to the game here, trying to digest everything that I just took in there. It's Ian Book. It comes down to Ian Book making a handful of plays that will be necessary to win. Now, he doesn't have to be perfect the whole game. He doesn't need to be explosive, the focal point of the offense. But I'm expecting 2 to 5 scenarios throughout the game where Ian Book is going to have to make a play with his legs or make a tight throw on the run, something, a 3rd and 12 situation where Ian Book will need to really take control of the offense. And you can only rely on Kyron Williams so much. Now, Ian Book, he's been very good on 3rd down this year. Against Georgia Tech on passing plays on 3rd down, he was 6 for 9 converting. So he's been good the past few weeks. We mentioned the efficiency of the passing offense. But this is your time, Ian. This is your time to take control.
Ian, if you're watching this program, listen to everything Paul is saying, please.
This is the game. This is a game that can come back and define his career a little bit. And of course, he'll have to go and do it again, hopefully against Clemson in the ACC championship game. But if you lose this game, that's really the consequence. If you lose this game, what does Ian Book have to show for his Notre Dame career? What big game has he won? I don't think there is one.
Maybe I hope he's not watching because you might be hurting his feelings.
No,
but
it's time
I feel
for
like
him to take
I hurt
control.
his feelings every week, so it's probably fine.
I think he can do it. I think he's a good quarterback.
All right, so Ian Book is number 1. What's number 2?
Number 2 for me is the coordinator matchup between Brent Venables and Tommy Rees.
Okay.
So Venables, he's one of the best defensive coordinators in the country. Some would consider him the best defensive coordinator in the country. And I'm curious to see exactly how he's going to approach this Notre Dame team. Is he going to follow suit of Pittsburgh and Georgia Tech and creep in those defensive backs, those safeties, to try and help out stopping the run? Because you have to remember, this Notre Dame offensive line, it's senior-led, it's experienced, very
it's
good.
Scary.
And they're going up against a pretty young Clemson defensive line, especially considering the suspensions and the injuries. So what is Venables going to do to be able to counter the rushing attack? He's very good at taking away one particular facet of an offense. So when he sneaks those safeties in, how will Tommy Rees counter? Is he going to go to the screen game, the short slant game? Is he going to stick to the run and try and challenge him head on?
He stuck to the run last week.
That's what we've been doing all year. That's who we are. But I'm very curious to see how Tommy Rees, and really his first test as a coordinator, responds to Brent Venables.
I like that. That's a good take. What's key number 3?
A little bit of a different take than some of the other ones we have.
A little bit of a change up, a little bit more unimportant information than what we've been covering so far this show, but I guess that's for you to decide. But what's key number 3, Paul?
Key number 3, and we're going to go back to this happy guy here, Travis Etienne.
He's so happy.
Notre Dame has to be able to control him. That's where it starts and ends with this Clemson team, and we've seen teams all year try and do this against Clemson. They're stacking the box. You need to slow down Etienne and make DJ Uiagalelei.
Good job.
How was that?
That was a good one. Did we get that on tape?
Yeah, you need to make DJ Uiagalelei win the game with his arm.
Okay.
So Etienne, the fear for Etienne is that coming out of the backfield, he's potentially the best receiver on this Clemson team.
Yeah.
7 catches, 140 yards last week. He can beat you in a variety of ways. So I'm excited to see that matchup between Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah and Etienne out of the backfield, exactly how we're going to try and stop him. You can't let him win the game, though. And he can do that. He's the best player on the field.
Yeah, I would agree with that. All right, those are pretty good ones.
Solid keys.
So
Those are
I
my
guess
3.
it's my turn, and I'm Ellen Geyer, and these are 3 keys to this week's game. I had a similar one to you in controlling the ground game, but for me, it's more on Notre Dame's side in terms of that offensive line has to just be as scary as it looks when you watch the games on TV. So Liam Eichenberg and Jarrett Patterson have to be able to plug those holes, and make sure that the ground game stays under control. So that's 1. 2, I think you have to eat the clock. If you're Notre Dame, every possession is valuable, and if you're going to continue to rely on the run game, I think that just always takes more time.
So, question for you. Do you think that Notre Dame cannot win a shootout here?
Ooh.
If this game gets into the range of 30, 35 points, do you think Notre Dame, can they compete with Clemson on that level?
I think yes. I don't think it's going to get to that point, though.
Neither do
I think it's going to be a
Neither do
low-scoring game. But I do think that it's going to be really important to control the clock. That's something Notre Dame hasn't been able to do in these big games before. In the Cotton Bowl, it was 27 minutes time of possession for the Irish, 32 for Clemson. And in that Georgia game we saw last year, it was 25 minutes of possession for Notre Dame and 34 minutes for Georgia. And obviously in both of those cases, the game went in favor of the team who was able to exploit the clock to their benefit. So I think that if the Irish want to really contend this week, that's going to be really important. So that's number 2. Number 3 is going to be the battle in the secondary. You have to put DJ under pressure. In the Cotton Bowl, obviously it was Trevor Lawrence, but Notre Dame had 3 quarterback hurries. They're going to have to really, really, really make this young quarterback sweat, especially since it's in Notre Dame Stadium. It's a night game. College game day is here. We don't have the advantage of the weather that we were hoping we were going to have, but DJ's a young quarterback. He's inexperienced. His minutes prior to last week have been largely garbage minutes, so it'll be interesting to see what he does against a more legitimate offense than the Boston College team he saw last week, which, as we saw, put him under a significant amount of pressure. So I think that those are our 6 keys, I guess, to the game.
Yeah, not bad.
So that's that. Final segment is going to be fact or fiction. Tale as old as time here.
All right.
These should be good. They're not as crazy as some of the ones I've thrown to you in the past, but they might be some hot takes. So, Paul, fact or fiction, Clemson records more rushing yards in this game. Clemson is averaging 166 yards per game, and they've had 19 rush touchdowns on the season, and Notre Dame is averaging 231 yards per game, and they've had 18 rush touchdowns on the season. So, fact or fiction, Clemson records more rushing yards.
That's a good one. That's a good one right off the bat. I'm going to say fiction. I think it's close throughout most of the game, the rushing totals for each team, but I have to favor Notre Dame. I have to favor the offensive line. And overall, Notre Dame's plan of attack is to run the ball.
Yeah.
So I think that that Kyron Williams and Chris Tyree, that the volume of touches they'll have is going to exceed Clemson's touches. Even though, as great as Etienne is, you can work him into a variety of different variety of ways. And Uyunglele can throw the ball. He's got a rocket for an arm. So I think that Clemson's going to come out and actually attack in certain facets.
Yeah, and I think too that Clemson can fall back on the pass game a little bit more. Like you said, Etienne is a dynamic receiver as well. So if his looks aren't there on the ground, he can also be a threat out wide. So I'm gonna say fiction as well. I think Notre Dame's gonna get more yards on the ground just based on the sheer number of carries they're gonna.
And you have to also keep in mind the injuries for Clemson and who's not playing. Like Tyler Davis being out in this game, he's someone who took over the Miami game earlier in the year. He's not going to be an issue for Notre Dame. So I think the Notre Dame run defense, that D-line is healthy. Everyone's going to be there. You have to favor them in this matchup.
I like that. All right, fact or fiction number 2. The margin of victory is more than a touchdown.
Man, I'm going to say fiction in this one. It would not surprise me if either team won by 10 points. This will not be a blowout game. I'd be very surprised to see a blowout. But in terms of what I'm expecting to see, close game back and forth, probably a 6 or 7 point game. So I'd put it right on that 7-point touchdown margin.
So then fiction.
Fiction.
Right under the line. Okay,
Fiction.
I'm going to say fiction as well. I think this is going to be 3-4 point game. Keep it really close. I think it's going to be close the whole way through. All right, last fact or fiction, and this is a spicy one. This fact or fiction, this game matters.
Oh, fact. Absolutely fact. And you know what? I'm going to come back on my previous statement just now. And I'm going to say that actually Notre Dame wins this game by 10 points. So I'm going to say Notre Dame wins the game by 10.
Okay, so then fiction to the touchdown.
Fiction, yeah. So as a home underdog, a game against the backup quarterback, a lot of disrespect towards Notre Dame.
All right.
Back to your question, this game absolutely matters because if Notre Dame loses, first off, then it's a worry to get into the ACC championship, especially with Miami in the mix. It comes down to a coin flip, basically, at that point, if both teams were to go undefeated. And second, if you win this game and you're Notre Dame, you get the chance to play Clemson again in the ACC championship game. If you beat them, you knock them out. And you play Cincinnati and probably go to the national championship game. If you lose and it's a close game, you probably still sneak in there.
Okay.
So for Notre Dame, this game is very important. You cannot afford a loss, and a win can only put you in a good spot.
Okay. All right. Maybe you've convinced me. Maybe I'll say fact as well. So it sounds like you have Irish by 10. What's your final score prediction, Paul?
27-17.
27-17? All right. I say Irish by a million, as always. But I'm going to go with 23-17. And in honor of Lee Corzo, we have our little Irish hats here. So Irish by a million. You guys, Shamrock Sports has just been a beautiful adventure for all of us. But
Not done
Paul
yet.
and I in
Not done
particular,
yet.
we're not done yet. But the Irish got to get it done this week against Clemson. I'm Alan Geyer, joined by Paul Farrington. Thanks for watching Shamrock Sports. We will see you next time.